David,
How's it going, Henry?
it's going well. What's funny is you just interviewed me, and now it's been a while since I've been interviewed, but thank you for conducting that interview with professionalism and care.
Of course, dude, you had some good answers. I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into this. I vividly remember your presentation in the storytelling workshop we did with Braven. And Braven, for those who don't know, is a career accelerator prep course that really focuses on narratives, focuses on equity and justice, and developing soft and hard skills, essential and hard skills as a elective course to accelerate your career. So that was that workshop. But I remember your presentation, David, and maybe you could speak a little bit about that and what you remember from that presentation. But there was just so much courage and so much wisdom that you shared in an impromptu thing too, where you didn't have much prep time.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll talk about that speech a bit. So, what the guest speakers that day, and I was one of them, were tasked with talking about is just the biggest challenge that we've had to overcome in our lives. And it might sound strange, but the biggest challenge I've ever had to overcome is just being myself. I spent my whole life just thinking about how can I get ahead in my career? How can I be better than the other person? How can I give off the best possible impression? But the truth is, you'll just be happier being your genuine self and meeting people that you really care about. And one thing I talked about was how I joined this student club and I made 500 plus connections on LinkedIn. I got 2 prestigious internships, but all I was doing was trying to step on other people. See, it doesn't matter if you have 500 plus connections, what if you're not truly connecting with the people who are closest to you. But while I was in this club, I met people who actually cared about me. And one day they finally just said, "You know what, David? Like, you can drop the act. Like, yes, you're getting ahead in life, but you're also hurting the people around you by not being genuine. And sometimes it's good to stand up on the first place podium, but that doesn't mean a thing if you're not truly standing up for what you really believe in." So it was thanks to just me meeting a small group of real friends who really cared about me. I learned that success isn't everything, popularity isn't everything. What really matters is that you be yourself and you have people that you really care about and you can be yourself around. And that's what my speech was really about.
Wow, I didn't realize you were gonna go that deep on that preview, but that I'm like getting chills just thinking about that live presentation that you did. And um, yes, since that day, every time I would see you on campus before COVID, it would be like a little boost of energy and boost of morale because I remember that speech every time I saw you. Every time I saw you in Braven's classes, or every time I saw you in the gym, or just walking on campus, I'd be like, "That's David." And I know him, and it's actually that point of making genuine connections is part and parcel to the learning code community. Um, the the team and I and all of our guests, I would say, has said in many different ways that real change happens one person at a time, right? So in education, if even if you spent 10 hours designing 100 hours just designing a curriculum, if that curriculum doesn't resonate for one student, then that curriculum isn't doing is probably going to fall a little short for the majority of the class. And yeah, I what a beautiful speech that was. I'm just reminiscing that workshop. Okay, before I get too emotional here, uh, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what it means for you to learn. So, if you want to define or just maybe philosophically speaking, what does the word learning mean to you?
To me, what learning is when knowledge connects with someone on the inside. Like, I could learn a million different facts about lizards, but if this doesn't connect to something that I'm interested in or something that could help me in my life, help the people around me, then it's just knowledge. I'm just gaining facts, but I'm not really learning a new lesson. When you learn something, it has to resonate with you. Like, for instance, when you learn soft skills about emotional intelligence and being a listener. I haven't always been a good listener. Sometimes I just like to talk and talk and talk, and I don't care about other people's opinion. But I noticed it was driving me away. And one day, someone just told me, like, you need to shut up and listen, David. So when I finally did, it resonated with me. The knowledge about listening connected to something that could be useful in my life and helping me in the long run. And that's when I learned to that other people have important facts too. Other people have important insights. And to me, I think that if all you ever do is gain knowledge, you're not really learning anything if you're not picking up the knowledge that can make the difference in real life. But what do you think learning is, Henry?
Ah, thank you for rallying it back. I resonated with the idea that we are no longer living in an age where facts are scarce. Like we don't have to actually get on a horse and go 10 miles to the library to check out a book to be able to get some facts, right? And it's actually because of that very fact that we are no longer in an age where information, data, and facts are scarce. It is especially important to get insights, to work as a community, to learn from each other, to learn from diverse point of views and not necessarily to the curriculum or to the book. You know, I mean, how many books do I have that I've gone through, skimmed through, um, are designed not necessarily for my learning needs, are not designed for my career goals, are not designed from a student's or a learner's perspective. Um, all of those are barriers in creating significant learning experiences. There's a beautiful taxonomy on this by LD Fink. Um, I wonder if well, yeah, maybe I won't share my screen now. But basically, yes, like it has never been more important, I feel, to genuinely listen, to learn and be willing to accept other perspectives and point of views, to be able to challenge and critique our own, right? Because seeking truth is hella hard, but seeking truth when you think you have all the facts and you think you have all the information in the world is basically makes it an impossible task because the reality is you don't. Um, so yeah, I love that definition of that. It has to really resonate. It has to connect, right? Two of the recent interviews I did with students, one with Andrew and one with Don Robert, they both said this, like, so much of the material we're asked to learn in our courses requires that we go that extra step to connect the dots, to see the bigger picture, to create mental models, and to ask the question, what the heck do I want to learn in this class? How
Exactly.
might this class serve me in my near or far future? Without asking those harder questions, I have found it's almost impossible to sustain motivation, even in one semester, to focus on the learning.
Right. I actually wanted to bring up something I saw on your Instagram. I saw a quote you posted. It said, learning is change and change is learning. So I think in order for you to learn, the knowledge you gain has to change you somehow. It has to have an influence. It can't just be a random fact about how precipitation comes 3% from plants. Like maybe, if you're a botanist, that's important to you. But I feel like what I learn has to have an influence on me. It has to help me get somewhere or even realize that maybe I'm a bit set back. That makes sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And in our academy, I would say that majority of our teachers truly believe and work very hard to present, to assess, and to measure our learning because they feel like if we can learn what they are working to help us learn and help us accelerate our learning, that it will serve us in some way, that it
Right.
wouldn't just isn't just a check off in the box. But the reality is, especially in my CS courses, um, disregarding the fact that some of the pace makes it extremely challenging to create any significant learning experiences, the reality is the presentation of those concepts, of the theorems, of the definitions and the stories oftentimes doesn't resonate. which means it requires, like learning requires for us to slow that presentation down, to slow that reading down, and to really pick apart how does this fit into the learning objective? How might this fit into my learning portfolio? Or how might I leverage what I learned today in my life tomorrow? Like it requires all that afterthought and reflection and fast because I don't know about you, David, but I've definitely been in semesters where if I get on this downward spiral, like let's say don't review my lectures or don't do my homeworks or assignments, you're walking on a tightrope for the rest of the semester and you give yourself no chance, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah,
And I think so often today, like we only learn or study things in our textbooks so we could get that A or just so we could pass that class. I think teachers and professors need to target learning to students to make it more practical instead of just some memorization. And I don't know about you, but a lot of times the classes I do the best in grade wise, I actually gain from the least from, or the classes where I just sit back, enjoy it, and follow it like a passion. Maybe I don't get the best grade, but I remember it for the rest of my life and I really learned something because the class and the knowledge changed me in a way.
for sure. Yeah, I think it's much more convenient to measure how much we remember than to turn that information into praxis, right? Into really like something that we can show for that learning. Fortunately, I have at least one professor, Jeff, who's creating a learning portfolio or helping his students create a learning portfolio, so that by the end of the course they'll have something to show for it. Whether it's rewriting their notes, whether it's making those connections and having that internal dialogue of um, what the heck is this for? How might beginning to develop mastery in this question help me in my life, help my friends, help my family in my life, help me prepare for a technical interview. But let's take a step back and celebrate the fact that you have graduated with an undergraduate degree and you're in an MBA program. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, David.
You repeat the question one more time? Sorry.
Yeah, just your thoughts on having graduated, number one, and being in an MBA program now.
I feel like I don't really know what I want to do with my life, but I'm in an area where I could figure that out because I spent most of my undergrad thinking that I just want to jump in a job in the tech field, big business. But now, as I'm learning later on, I want to make a difference in society. I want to be a leader. Maybe I want to start my own company. I don't know. But my ears and my eyes are open. So I could use this MBA program as a tool to figure out as I learn different things in my classes. And I just think that it's really good that the San Jose State program is more focused on hands-on and practical learning um, to help me in my career, but mainly just gives me a chance to be more open-minded. And as I told you in the story in the beginning, I spent most of my undergrad time being self-absorbed and narrow-minded, but now I have a second chance to be selfless and a good listener and to just be my genuine self, which is, I think, might not always be the key to be successful, but key to be live a happier life. I don't know if that answered the question you wanted, way you wanted it to, but
Yeah, no, it did. I mean, I'm still figuring my life out, even though I have a career goal to become a community college educator. Um, there's a long ways to go for that, right? And it really is a journey and not a destination, especially if I want to be good at my craft. So that learning really never ends.
doesn't.
One last question I have for you, David, for today is what are some things you wish you can tell yourself now, having graduated, that, to do differently or to think about differently?
I would tell myself, stop pretending that you know everything already, because having an open mind is really the key to everything. And the more you think you know, the less you probably do know. And it wasn't until one day I finally realized that, hey, other people have good insights and that I'm not a know it all, is when I was able to learn and I was able to absorb more knowledge and just lessons from life. And I think that's what was helped me really change and become, well, I believe, a happier and more moral person. And if one other thing that I would tell myself is that actually listen, because knowing my old self, I probably wouldn't be listening in the first place. So I think a lot of times, like, it doesn't matter what you tell yourself in the past because you are the way that you are. And a lot of times it just takes hard life experiences and lessons to really change you and make you develop. It can't just be one quick note from someone in the future or anyone else. You just have to go and experience life and be open minded to wherever it takes you. But I actually wanted to ask you the same question. To take you back 4 years, what would you say to yourself, Henry?
Yeah, I actually, David, I need to make a lot of changes like right now. So just from my experiences last semester, I have so much that I need to implement fast if I want to, I would say, just pass my upper division CS coursework, not even to be able to learn deeply, like just to pass them. I need to implement some major changes. So um, I love how you're highlighting the fact of listening. It's huge, right? Because listening, in my mind, isn't necessarily just listening to perhaps a mentor or a peer or a professor's advice, but it's also exploring the knowledge that's out there and the wisdom and the insights, whether through book, whether through media, um, and really sitting in that kind of perhaps discomfort, or sitting in that like I don't know about you, David, but I've been doing a ton of research in like how to be productive. One for my actual research project and two for another project, but it's like to implement those changes, as we both know, as we all of our listeners know, requires just willpower and discipline, right? Um, so as far as saving myself and hoping to learn a little bit more than I did last semester, there are some real changes I need to make. One being just give myself enough time to do deep work, right? Undistracted work
Here's
where
the
I'm
thing, Henry.
stretching.
I hate to interrupt you, but
That's right.
you keep saying it's hard for you to be productive. But if it's this hard for you to be productive, are you really passionate about whatever it is that's so hard to get your work done in? Because maybe at that point, like, you're just not meant to do it. Because if it's that hard for you to be productive on the job when you eventually graduate, and I'm sure you will, is this really the path you want to follow the rest of your life when it's always a struggle just to do your work? Shouldn't it just be something you enjoy and do naturally anyway?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that. I recognize if I want to be anything, if I even want to be in the same department as some of the professors in the CS department, um, like the positions that they're in right now, right? Like if you're a professor teaching computer science at college, requires that you have to be passionate about computer science at some point in time of your life, right? Like you had to immerse yourself in the field and in the discipline. And I'm not there yet. And I don't think I'm even close. And because I'm not immersed in that field of study, it makes lecture, it makes those assignments, it makes those exams 10 times harder.
Mm.
So I do believe it is cultivatable. Like you can, every skill known to humankind is developed and learned. I believe it, right? Some people have a head start over others, and that's true. Some people have more access to really good information that saves them hella time and energy. That's also true. Um, but as far as like developing that passion for something that we, me, has very little of, um, is doable. I believe it to the bottom of my heart. What do you think about that?
I have to disagree. When I first started college, I majored in economics and finance. I heard it makes money. I thought, at first I don't enjoy studying this, but one day I'll love making money, right? But I realized I don't care how much money I'm making in. If I have to go into work every day hating my job or going to class hating what I study, nothing makes it worth it. So I switched to human resources and I started studying about how I can help people be productive, how I can help employees be the best employees they can be, and individuals be the best individuals they could be. I didn't need to learn better study habits. I'm sure everyone does, but still, I just felt the passion. I enjoyed going to class. When I was in a lecture, I listened because I wanted to listen. I didn't take notes because I had to take notes to focus. I took notes because I thought, wow, this stuff is awesome. And I want to learn more. And I want to remember it because this is what I want to do every day of my life. So, question, like I know you're genuinely passionate about teaching and helping students. So, do you think maybe computer science is more of a stepping stone for you? So, maybe you have to learn computer science if eventually you want to teach it someday. But I think if you do become a teacher someday, which I know you're passionate about, I think you'll love coming into work every day and you won't have to be worry about being productive because you'll naturally just want to work anyway because it won't really feel like work.
Yeah. Um, yes. Thank you for the push, right? Because I mean, you're looking out for my future, and you're looking out for my ability to survive and cope with the thing that's called academia. Um, there are large inequities in STEM higher education, in STEM education period, but in STEM higher education, just because I've been thinking and studying about this. I don't know if you know, David, at San Jose State, approximately only 15% of first generation college students in STEM departments graduate after 6 years. So that's a huge, that's thousands of students every year that don't graduate, right? So that is, there's a problem there. And I think, if you were to ask me right now, like plan B, I would feel like I can teach other subjects, right? I can maybe do English or do something like this.
But if you are passionate about English, I'm not saying you are, shouldn't you just learn English and teach it? Because you're only getting 50% of your passion, which is teaching, but the other 50% computer science doesn't sound like something you're really into.
It is something that I haven't fell in love with yet. I fortunately, I believe now, after working with many people who empowered my view of what learning can be, um, I realized I can get to where you got to, which is like you were taking notes because you found that material just fascinating, right? And matter of fact, I mean, technology and engineering is quite fascinating if you look at the inventions that arose from those disciplines.
Yeah, a lot of things.
Yeah, but what is uh, the opposite of fascinating are these upper division CS courses. Not because it's not the underlying principles and the foundation to how our computers work and how our phones work and how Zoom works, but it's just the academic rigor or the structures and the constraints around a college course that make it really difficult to engage with, right? Um, but there are skills. There are skills that we can use and develop in this journey of learning things that are difficult that can give us a little more hope and a little more chance in obtaining skills that you might otherwise have not been able to obtain.
Right. I think you can honestly do anything you put your mind to. I'm sure if you try hard enough, you'll be super successful in your difficult computer science courses and the CS career. I just don't think it's possible to force yourself to truly like something. Like, I'm sure you pick up better habits to make it more enjoyable, but passion is just something that strikes you like lightning. You can't force it to happen.
Yeah. There's a good book on this, actually, David. The book is called be so good that they can't ignore you. And the one of the arguments the author, his name is Cal Newport, makes in that book is that following your passion is dangerous because if you were to survey, let's say, hockey players in Canada on what their passion is, the vast majority of them will be like to go into the NHL. But there just doesn't exist enough positions in the National Hockey League to make a living in that sport, right? So I
Right.
understand his argument for sure. But he goes on to say, like, how do you develop career capital or perhaps human capital so that you can be most fulfilled? I think you have actually tapped into this because you've realized you don't have to focus on career capital if you focus on being a good human and developing skills to serve other human beings and to provide value in other humans' lives. You're fine. In fact, you're more than fine because you're actually enjoying the day to day, right? And the part of the pain that I'm articulating to you right now is classes oftentimes are a little bit dehumanizing, right? You have someone professing truths to you and assigning grades and assessing you, and much of that comes from a place of intimidation, even though when they don't want it to be, like it just is, right? Sometimes, like, no one likes to be judged for their learning when they're not even getting a slice of the picture of what we've had to go through for some of those assignments and those exams. So thank you for reminding me that as much as career capital is important, um, to focus on human capital and thinking about who we are, where we want to be, and what we can do is equally as important.
Exactly. And to touch on what he said about the NFL or the NHL, those are professional sports. Those are extreme examples. Like a lot of times, like if you're really good at basketball but don't go into the NBA, that doesn't mean you can't switch over to football and join the NFL. But when we're talking about our careers, especially when you're still in college, maybe you're not enjoying studying art, but it is very possible to switch over and study philanthropy and explore a career as a philanthropist and find something you're truly passionate about. So we might not always get our number one peak passion. Like I always wanted to be a professional water polo player, but now I'm not. But I'm still passionate about human resources, and here I am feeling fulfilled in my career. In my career,
Yeah, that's a great point. Um, yeah, to be continued. I think the debunking passion and um, leveraging passion into tangible steps that we can take as individuals to make the most out of our lives is super powerful. I think. Let me share my screen really quickly.
yeah,
Uh, Maybe it's actually not possible because my computer is frustrating. um, let's see. Try one more time. Oh, it is possible now. Okay, I just had to update some privacy settings. um, okay, so this is a handout that Jeff Anderson, part of the learning, one of the co-authors of the Learning Code, made for his students right now. He's teaching a full load, but the book is called Limitless Mind by Joel Bowler. A woman wrote this book, and you know, when you look at these learning keys, David, um, I can associate passion with almost all of them because it's important. Like for sure, number three, right? Believe in yourself. You can do anything you want to, right?
right, yeah,
Um, all of this is, I would say, keys to inculcating, to um, build, to insert whatever verb that you would like in passion, right? Um, but many of the keys there, we were having a brief conversation on assumptions earlier, are actually not communicated to us, right? Like we've had people who make assumptions on our learning ability and who we can be, who we can become, what career positions we can land, um, that are projected on us that ultimately shape some of our goals, right? Short or long term. Um, so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've learned in human resources, specifically studying employee engagement, is that you need to empower people and always give them a chance to shine. So, some people shine automatically. Some people have an unconscious bias. Well, everyone does, but a lot of people have a very strong conscious bias towards some students, some employees, and they think that they're just better. But you need to give everyone a chance to lead and show what they can do in their own way. And it's called bottom up leadership. So it's not just the people at the top or the professor of the classroom telling on everyone what to do. You decide the course of action based on what everyone thinks, and you accept everyone's ideas. Now, what usually happens when you take this course of action is that you find people shine in many different ways that you never expected. Maybe someone didn't, figure out the math homework or the statistics aspect of the course because they need to work on their analytical ability. But when you let them do things their own way, it turns out that they're very creative and that they could be great leaders. And you never would have had that happen if you just assumed that they were dumb or that they were incompetent because they couldn't figure out the statistics or didn't have the analytical skills. Never assume anything based on a first impression or based on any impression, really, because just because you see one side of the story where someone might be struggling or somebody might not be doing well, there could be another side of the story that they're just not getting to express themselves, or they're either very creative or perhaps lacking in another area when you just got the impression that they thought they were invincible.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, yes. I think you would love the work of Amy Edmondson and her writing on psychological safety. Have you heard of this woman or that
Um,
concept? Yeah, so in the one sentence summary of psychological safety is she did like decades worth of research at organizations and in academia. And she found that what creates psychologically safe teams, where teams can be super high performing, is where people could literally feel that they can raise their hand and be like, yo, I didn't really get it. Or can you explain that to me? Like, how often have we been in meetings or informal settings where we didn't feel like we had that opportunity, right? So
right.
it's exactly that, because the brain science behind that is when we don't feel like we can do that, literally our brain shuts down. So like whatever is happening, whatever is being presented to us, um, is definitely not even going through because we don't feel safe in that environment.
Exactly. Which is why you
Um,
need to reach out and ask people what they think so that they know that they're valued.
yeah, for sure. The note there wants me to remind our audience members to go into office hours and restore some of the humanity in our professors, because I think sometimes due to the workload and the constraints that professors have, they lose a little. They sometimes become a little out of touch, right? It's because it's hard. How do you serve 100 students in a given semester? It's much easier to just center the content and center the delivery of the subject, but it actually dehumanizes both parties in that case, right? Not only do the students not feel like they can raise their hand and be like, "Yo, what up?" I didn't get it. The teachers also don't feel like they have a chance for dialogue and uh, maybe open-ended feedback.
Well, there's one HR strategy you could do, which is called divisive learning or divide and conquer learning, where say there's 100 students and there's 10 different topics, right? That they all have to learn.
Mm,
Assign them all to 10 different groups and have each person in a group be an expert in one topic. That empowers them to teach others and feel like they're in control. It gives away some of your leadership and you have to give up some of your ego because you can't just teach all 10 topics, but it does give other people a chance to step up. And I think a lot of times the problem with big business leaders or big professors is that they get too much pleasure and too much satisfaction about being the one in charge, being the one to lead the team or the classroom. But what they need to know is that they need to share the joy and the pleasure by giving others a chance to step up and lead or teach or help others learn.
Yeah, I agree. We can go on, but I think this is plenty long for our first meeting. Thank you so much for joining me, David.
No, it was a pleasure. I enjoyed talking with you, Henry.
I can't wait to write out some of the keys to this talk, and then we can take a deeper dive on some of this.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Okay, have a good evening.
Bye.